What happens when two of the most plugged-in people in digital care team up to help you make sense of the chaos? Welcome to Control Plus Care. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Katie.
This is your weekly briefing of the most important digital care updates. We are unpacking everything you need to know this week in under 30 minutes, hopefully. But first, Katie, how are you?
Really good. Really excited for this week. Lots of travel. It got Het in London tomorrow, and then the Care Show Wednesday, Thursday. So by the time this comes out, they all will have been in the past. I'm sure we'll talk about them next week and all the things we've learned. But, it's a really exciting time to get out, to really meet people, to learn things from others, spend a lot of time going to conferences, but not really having time to sit and watch other panel sessions. So I'm very excited for it.
Also, this is our big event, isn't it? Especially the Care Show. I
Mm,
know that I've spent the last couple of weeks saying to people, "Oh, are you at the Care Show? I'll see you there." So
yeah,
my dance card is full of people that I need to grab while we're there. So if you are listening, no, that makes no sense. If you are listening, it'll have already happened. But we'll be at the next Care Show, so do give us a line.
exactly. Yes, this already will have happened because that's how time works. But hopefully we will have seen you in person if you were there. So
We are also at an awful lot of other events, so if you are ever going to anything and you see us, do drop us a line. We'd love to grab a coffee.
definitely.
Now, today we've got another bumper lot of digital news. It's been really difficult again to choose the stories
Mm.
because there is just so much going on. So should we crack on?
I think so, because else we're definitely going to overrun.
And we don't want to run over 30 minutes. We've done that once already.
Yeah, we were in trouble.
Okay, well, so we're starting with my news. And actually, I'm going to call this a silver lining to one of last week's bad news stories. So those of you who listened last week will remember there was a story about a bunch of hackers who had stolen incredible amounts of data from children's nursery. And it was data about the children. It was pictures. It was parents' phone numbers. It was everything. And it was such a difficult story, and one that whenever I spoke to anyone about it last week, they were just like, I almost feel like I can't believe this has happened. Like, it felt like it had crossed the line. And actually, we weren't the only people who felt that way because the public outcry around it was enormous. So much so that in the news this week, it turns out that the hackers have now deleted the children's pictures and data following that incident because people were so outraged by it. Which I think is fairly heartwarming that we are actually able, as a community, as a society, to say, this is too far. Actually,
Mm.
there is crime and then there is just, beyond. And this definitely went beyond. Interestingly, at first, there was like a token gesture of, oh, we'll delete the pictures. That didn't go far enough. And now the hackers say they've now deleted the data and apologized. So again, there was still a major cyber incident. Children's data, which should not have been accessible, was still stolen. But that data has now been taken down off the dark web because people said, actually, enough's enough. We don't want to be party to this. We don't want to live in a world where this is the case for our children.
Yeah. I think this was such a sad story last week. And I think it is really positive, really heartwarming, as you say, that sort of people have seen the error of their ways feels like an understatement almost, but, have taken these steps. I guess the things which sort of occur to me, one is serious and one's probably just a bit unserious. So maybe the serious one is obviously while it's great that they've taken the photos down, those photos were still available on the dark web for a significant amount of time. We don't know where those may have been taken, where they have gone to in the meantime, particularly given it was such a huge news story. So presumably, while it's a great gesture and token, it doesn't completely make up for the reality of those children's images are just out there
Mhm.
now, does it? Yeah. The less serious ones, because I haven't seen the apology, I now want to know, is it a good apology or is it like, I'm sorry you feel like we hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, everything about this story, and we know that cyber criminals are typically on the younger side.
Mm,
And everything about this story says to me, a bunch of teenagers went, oh no, we're really in trouble.
yeah.
So the apology is about on that tone.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Very much
Um,
teenager who has got caught sneaking out and is now really doesn't want to have their devices taken away from them.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's what's it's given. But at the same time, how often do we get a story whereby we can honestly say people said no and it changed the outcome? And I think especially with a lot of the stories around cyber, we often just feel really powerless
Yeah.
because it's an invisible enemy. We can't get our hands on them. They're usually some in another country. It happens very much to us. That this has been able to affect some sort of, if not remorse, then accountability.
Hmm.
Great.
Yeah. That's an incredible update. We did not expect that or call that last week.
No,
So, yeah, we're not the people to be fortune telling, apparently, about what's happening next.
no, we're not Nostradamus at all.
No. So, shall I move on to my first story of the
Absolutely.
week? So, this one's again a little thin on the ground. And for, I think, the first time in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to raise the AI klaxon on this one. It is going to get mentioned. Um, but this is the news that the government has launched a national commission to look into the regulation of AI in healthcare. And it's announced who's on the expert panel. You've got international experts, you've got clinicians, you've got people who are frontline GPs, people in secondary care. And the purpose of this commission is to inform MHRA, who is the regulator for medical devices, on sort of what their standards and regulations should be for AI policy. And obviously, we know how much AI is being used across health and social care now, all of the different varieties of it. Some AI has been regulated, of course, as a medical device for quite some time now. If you think about diagnostic imagery, for example, there's strict regulation around that. MHRA are already involved in that space. But particularly, sort of with the rise of generative AI, agentic AI, the rapid developments, I think it's important that we're looking quite seriously at regulation. And while this is very health focused, my sort of hope is this commission will be more in the social care space. That sort of barrier between what's health data and what care data feels like it gets smaller and smaller every week, really. What something is
Mhm.
collected by a social care member of staff then ends up appended into somebody's health record. Right. So I think this is definitely one to watch. It's a very much a who's who of international sort of like patient safety and AI who are on this commission. So I think it's quite exciting and also really quick timelines. So they're planning to publish by 2026, which I mean, I'm assuming they don't mean January 26. That would be an aggressive timeline. But still, we normally have to wait quite a long time for
Mhm.
regulatory updates. So it's quite exciting to see that we're going to have that clarity coming out so quickly.
I mean, that actually is really good. I remember someone saying at a conference one time, if innovation sprints, regulation crawls.
Hmm.
And that is very often what we see. We have these giant innovations, and I think AI is the biggest one, certainly, it feels like, of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, Certainly the most rapid,
Hmm.
because I was born before the internet. Um, I know.
Just.
Nobody believes it, honestly. Child bride.
Obviously.
Um, But, for regulation to be able to turn around and pivot at such a speed, and let's remember regulation in healthcare, which is another layer
Yeah.
of glacial pace. So this is really good. And, having a look at the list of the people that are involved, there are some big brains on this group.
Hmm. Oh, definitely. And, I'm asked quite a lot by care providers, obviously, about, what is CQC going to do in terms of regulation? And obviously, CQC are not a technology regulator, and we wouldn't want them to be. I think we've said that before on
Mhm.
this podcast. So, actually, having the medical technology regulator coming out with this as our direction of travel, I think that's going to offer a lot more clarity about sort of what's the responsibility of the CQC as opposed to what's the responsibility of medical device regulation.
And it'll be interesting, won't it? Because I think there's a
Mm,
big push, certainly by AI suppliers, to say, well, we're not a device.
yeah.
We're not a device. Well, I would argue you're more of a device than a lot of software. So,
Hmm.
you certainly are gobbling up data in a way that other systems are not. Um, but no, really interesting and definitely one for us to watch out for.
Yeah, for sure.
Fabulous. Well, my next news story, I'm going back to cyber, if I'm honest. Now, this is a topic that pops up from time to time. Like, I spend a lot of my time at cyber events, and I'm really lucky. I kind of bridge. I spend a lot of time at care events, and then I spend a lot of time at cyber events that are much broader than that. And
Mm.
mental health in cyber is an issue that does not get nearly enough airtime, but when it does, it is hugely impactful. Um, you know, mental health is a big issue in any job. We know in social care the toll it can take on individuals who are doing high pressure jobs where people's lives and livelihoods are at the end of the support that we provide. And cyber, it's not so different. It just is possibly a bit less visible. So this year, as we know, has been one of many high profile cyber incidents. M&S, Co-op, recently Jaguar Land Rover.
Mm.
Um, but, when we're thinking about these incidents, how many of us really are thinking about the teams who are fighting that cyber response? Who get that phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday to say this has happened, you better turn up to work, and we don't know when you'll be going home again.
Yeah.
Um, they are often pulling multi-day long shifts to tackle an incident. In fact, Mike Fell, the director of cyber for NHS England, he will often tell an anecdote of leading a really significant incident in healthcare where one of his young daughters watches a unicorn program and it became too complex a plot for him because he'd
Oh
had so little
God.
sleep. He couldn't follow the plot of what I believe was Unicorn Academy.
Oh no.
And he is going to be one of the sharpest brains I know.
Yeah.
So, this toll physically, mentally, emotionally of these big incidents and what it's having on the security operations centers globally, it's relentless for them. And that's only the ones that we hear about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm often is pointed out to me that a really successful cyber incident is one that actually doesn't affect anybody.
Mm.
That's often where the most work has happened. Where something's been identified, responded to, addressed really quickly by the SOC. But there's no applause for the cyber incident that didn't happen. There's no, praise and kind of awards for the people who didn't get cyber attacked,
Mm-hmm.
ironically. And the individuals who are, spending their days constantly fighting these invisible forces who are becoming more and more aggressive, who are becoming more and more relentless. You know, it's leading to burnout, which is a real issue in a sector where we already have a skill shortage in cyber. We already don't have enough people in this industry. So I
Mm.
thought it was really interesting to see BBC pull this story out. I am lucky enough to have seen some phenomenal speakers on this um, topic. And I think for us in social care, I would say we understand the pressures of a difficult job in our workforce.
Yeah.
I don't know that we always get it right how we address it because we are so threadbare because of all of the things we all know about in social care. But, to be looking to our companions in cyber and recognizing that they're also having a really tough time, and that it is even less visible than it is in our industry. It's probably, I thought it was worthy of a conversation here, given who our audience tends to be.
Yeah. No, I think it's absolutely something that we need to be talking about more. Um, do you want to tell the audience what a sock is, though, so they don't think you're talking about things to put on your feet?
I mean, mostly I just want them to think that I know lots of lingo.
Mm.
A SOC is a Security Operations Center. So they're the people who are at the front line of defense. They are at their computers, tap, 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 watching
Yeah.
all the various feeds. And then they are the ones who are, applying patches, doing all of the things to try and get the attack stopped.
Yeah. Thank you. But that we will also provide recommendations on sock brands for your feet if needed in a
Um,
future
I heard
podcast.
Argyle is coming back in a big way this winter.
Ooh,
If the Danish
exciting.
girls are wearing them, we should be looking.
Definitely. But on a more serious note with this topic as well, I think obviously the cyber profession as well is still very male dominated, particularly even in the health and social care
Hmm.
space. And we know there is a huge issue with men not accessing support around their mental health, not feeling able to talk about their mental health, talking about burnout and that sort of thing. So I think the risks that we see here are very, very real. And we do need to be doing more to make sure that people are in a supportive work environment and
Mm.
having this conversation for people. And particularly in terms of the resources that we can provide, particularly to men, though to anybody obviously in the cyber profession. I think it's one which we need to maybe shine more of a spotlight on the problems that you have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more we talk about things, the more real they are. And you hopefully someone listens and goes, "Oh, I'm not the only one who feels
Yeah,
utterly exhausted and burnt out just by the fact that I do this job."
yeah,
What
definitely.
we'll probably do in the show notes is find some resources and share them around things like burnout and mental health, because I think that's really important to make that accessible for people as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good idea. We'll do that.
Rihanna will do that for us.
Rihanna will do that. Thanks, Rihanna.
She's an angel.
um, Okay. Just a quick update one then for me. So I was lucky enough to attend Tech UK's Health and Care Summit last week, which was a really, really fascinating day. I think we obviously talk about technology a lot, but don't necessarily spend a lot of time talking about the technology industry and sort of the pressures that they are under and the things that they are trying to achieve. And so Tech UK as the industry body, I think is always a really great space to get updates on sort of where the software companies who provide software into health and social care are, what they're thinking about, what their concerns are, and next steps. So would really recommend anybody sort of follows their newsletters in the first instance, if even if you're not yourself developing software or hardware, just it's really useful, I think, to understand where industry is in this space. But it's also quite interesting. So they have just relaunched their social care working group at Tech UK. They've got somebody new in to lead it. It seems to have a lot of activity happening as well. So they've already had in Sally Warren, so the interim director for adult social care, to talk to members and sort of talk about this direction of travel. And also Sonia Patel is the chief technical officer for NHS England. Um, and what I think is fantastic about this is obviously then you've got technology suppliers into social care, talking to very senior decision makers within the NHS and within the department and sort of saying, this is where industry is, this is what is happening. So, as we get clearer sort of policy coming out about what health and care integration might mean, what the future of social care digitization might mean, those conversations are already happening. And so I don't have anything very specific. I obviously wasn't in the room for these conversations. That is specifically for industry, but the newsletter updates, I think, are exciting. The conference itself, fantastic, great panels, and just something very much keeping an eye on sort of where industry is going, because quite often it's leading really, and we're following as care providers in the sector.
Absolutely. And I think, we've had a relationship with Tech UK for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really nice that actually, I would say, long before other partners, Tech UK recognize that social care is a really important part of the tech ecosystem.
Hmm.
And it seems like they're continuing to invest and, capture members who are working in our space.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
great.
Yeah.
Fab. Well, my next news story is also a little update. We spoke a few weeks ago about the Digital Inclusion Fund for England. The Scottish one is now open. So obviously we are a global organisation, um, with listeners as far as Edinburgh. So we know definitely there's at least one, and
Yeah.
they will be interested in
Glasgow.
this.
I know one person in Glasgow.
There we go. There we go.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the Scottish contingent will be interested, and obviously organisations work across borders. So, the Connecting Scotland Digital Inclusion Fund rolls off the tongue, but it's looking to support projects that tackle, as you'd expect, digital inclusion in Scotland. There's over 400,000 available, and organisations can apply for between 10 and 50k. So, we should see a lot of projects come
Yeah.
out of this. And there are two categories. So scale and replicate existing best practice in digital inclusion, and then capital for things like software, laptops, etc. We'll leave the link of where you can apply, but it'd be really interesting to see what projects come out of this, and we'll be keeping an eye on it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we knew that there was going to be additional funding coming out from government, which was going to extend into Scotland, and also it will extend into Wales. We haven't seen an announcement about that yet, but we do know that is forthcoming. But digital inclusion is such a huge, huge area for social care. Really excited as well to see that quite substantial funding is going into this space. And hopefully, sort of also establishing an evidence base of what works really well. Also, really empowering community groups in
Yeah,
particular to support within their local communities. So, yeah, really exciting to see funding coming into the system.
fabulous.
And then my final one for this week is a new consultation, which has come out from NHS England's Information Governance Panel, which is asking for feedback into particular outputs that they should be producing as a priority. I appreciate because it's NHS England, people might think it's not relevant to social care, but actually, quite sort of the IG documentation, which is developed really, really relevant to us. So, the Records Management Code of Practice, for example, which is what CQC recommends people use for records retention, developed by this panel. All of the advice around multidisciplinary team, sharing information, data processing comes from the National IG panel within NHS England. And they've got a huge list of different suggestions. I'm obviously not going to tell you what to vote for, but some of the things I think are really relevant to us. Sharing information with the voluntary sector, is that something that should be prioritized? Sharing information for informal and family carers, that sort of thing. So I'll make sure to include a link into the show notes. Do have a look through, do give suggestions, make sure your voices are heard about sort of what guidance would be really helpful to have in a standardized way nationally.
Yep, brilliant. And then remember, if we don't have our say, we can't really complain afterwards when it doesn't include us. So I do, encourage anyone who has even the tiniest bit of interest in this area to complete the consultation. Well, Katie, that is the roundup of all of our news stories. It's felt like a
Yeah.
whirlwind tour today.
All over the place today, covering all aspects: men's mental health, AI, we're all over the
Cyber.
shop. Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're here for. And I really enjoy it. So we're going to go
True.
to yours are my favorite item. It is Cyber Squirrels.
It
So, for
is.
those of you that haven't listened before, this is our segment where we just find something a little bit lighthearted, a little bit left of field, funny if we can, just a tech story that we thought saw this week and maybe smiled a little bit. So, Katie, I believe you've got one for us.
I do. So it's with great pleasure that I get to say the very happiest of birthdays to Microsoft Excel, which has turned 40, which just feels,
Oh, we're the same age.
yeah, I'm like, I didn't realize I was younger than Excel. That's wild, isn't it? And I don't think, I think we've all used it all of the time. It's kind of crazy to believe that it was created about 40 years ago, first launched, and it's still the most widely used spreadsheet product on the market. Obviously, you've got Google Sheets and other things which are creeping up on it, but you've got Excel, which is there. And which of the other spreadsheet alternatives are also a worldwide esport? Did you know this? There's the Microsoft Excel World Championships.
I feel like I didn't know it, but I can't imagine a world where that wasn't a thing because I know too many people for whom you would have to prize Excel out of their cold, dead hands before they used another spreadsheet software.
Right. So it is literally done like any other esport. There is commentary. They do it in a big venue live in the US because, of course, it's in the US. People get to enter through like a tunnel as if they're actually a sports team. There is like klaxons going off. There is applause as people who follow Excel spreadsheet like superstars in this place.
There are literally 3 members of our team that I know are sending us emails right now asking if they can have expenses
to go
to
to this.
go to this because they
Absolutely.
feel like it's a legitimate business reason.
Yeah.
Um, like I really like that because Excel is one of those things that I'm like, I can't believe there was a world before Excel, and
Hmm.
I really hate the idea that there might be a world after Excel.
I
Like if you
know.
think of like the life expectancy of a software these days, it's not 40 years.
No, that's crazy. I mean, it's outlived multiple coding languages and it's
Well,
still going.
and AI keeps telling us that it's gonna crack Excel.
Hmm.
And the real Excel aficionados are like, good luck, dude. Good luck.
That's it. I mean, I have tried to use AI to help with Excel and it's not quite been there yet for me, but I might be using it wrong, to be fair. But yeah, I love the fact that there's world championships. I also particularly love if you read like this formal press release from Microsoft about this. There's a great quote in there, which is basically saying people who would never be able to take part in any sports or any other esports are superstars in this. And I was like, oh, that's a bit of a backhanded compliment, Microsoft. Oh my God.
And that is what the Excel lovers deserve.
It's fair. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so that's been it for this week. Come back next week where we'll be discussing the latest in digital care. So, what happens when two really plugged in people team up to demystify digital care? You get control plus care.
Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts, and all of the very many links we mentioned today will be in the show notes.
Tell a colleague, particularly if they're at risk of cyber burnout.